Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating, totally novel hypothesis that attempts to unify some of the universe's absolute biggest mysteries. Have you ever wondered if the basic laws of physics that keep your feet firmly planted on the ground have anything at all to do with the thoughts swirling around inside your head? Usually, we think of those things as totally separate worlds, but today we're going to dive into a completely new concept called the coupled field of being that actually tries to connect the whole shebang.
I know, it sounds straight out of a science fiction movie, right? But we're actually looking at a rigorous, highly falsifiable hypothesis that asks that exact question. Are gravity, life, and our own awareness really just different phases of the exact same underlying field? We aren't just talking about some late-night philosophical idea here. We're talking about actual math, real physical properties, and hard tests that can be done right now in a laboratory.
The brains behind this intriguing concept is Kevin L. Brown. He's a researcher, inventor, and author who essentially set out to fix the math in earlier theories and present a fully testable model. He calls this framework triune harmonic dynamics. Now, what's really impressive about Brown's work is that he noticed some pretty big math mistakes in previous versions of this idea. So he went back to the drawing board, completely corrected the numbers to make sure everything strictly followed physical laws, and published this updated, highly rigorous paper.
Quickly, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the core physics problem, move into the coupled field hypothesis itself, look at testing the gravitational shift, touch on biology and neural synchrony, and wrap up with the real-world implications.
All right, part one, the core physics problem and bridging the gaps in our understanding.
So here's the massive puzzle scientists have been wrestling with for decades. Our existing understanding treats gravity, biological life, and the human mind as entirely disconnected fields of science, right? A physicist studies gravity, a biologist looks at cells, and a neuroscientist maps the brain. But Brown's hypothesis argues they're actually fundamentally interconnected. He suggests they're emergent phases of one single underlying field. Think of it kind of like water. It can be solid ice, liquid water, or steam, but it is fundamentally the exact same stuff, just showing up in different phases.
Which brings us to part two. The coupled field hypothesis and its three-layer field.
You can literally think of this hypothesis like a three-layer cake. According to Brown's research, the universe basically operates through three nested interacting layers. Layer 1 is the atomic layer, which deals with gravitation and your basic physics. Layer 2 is the electromagnetic layer, which is where we actually start to see biological order take shape. And Layer 3 is the informational layer, dealing with our neural awareness and entropy. Because these layers are coupled together, a change in one layer literally ripples right through the others.
Now, for this to actually work on a mathematical level, Brown had to define exactly what that informational layer is. In his paper, he defines it as an actual, calculable energy density created by just multiplying local temperature by the entropy density. Without getting too bogged down in the advanced equations, what you really need to take away here is that Brown gave this abstract concept real physical units. He made it something you can calculate, which is step one toward actually proving it in the real world.
Okay, moving on to part 3, testing the gravitational shift. This is where we move out of pure theory and into falsifiable science.
Brown's math predicts that because these three layers interact, there should be a tiny, and I mean tiny, correction to local gravity. How small are we talking? Exactly this number, 4.6 times 10 to the negative 25th power. To put that in perspective, that's a decimal point followed by 24 zeros and then a 4 and a 6. It is an unimaginably small fractional shift in gravity. But, and this is super important, it's a mathematically conservative number derived directly from his corrected formulas, completely free of those arithmetic mistakes found in older theories.
But that definitely begs the question, right? A theory is really only as good as its ability to be tested. So how on earth do you test a gravitational shift that unimaginably tiny in a normal laboratory? Well, Brown actually lays out a strict falsification protocol to do exactly that. Falsification is basically just a fancy science word for how to prove this wrong. Scientists would need to use a highly controlled environment called a high-Q laboratory cavity. Inside this space, they rapidly alternate the on and off states of electromagnetic intensity, while creating tiny temperature changes, known as thermal microgradients. Then, using incredibly sensitive equipment, we're talking long-time differential interferometry, they look for that tiny gravitational shift. If they run this test and get a consistent null result, meaning absolutely zero shift in gravity happens, then Brown's theory is officially proven wrong. Having that clear parameter for failure is exactly what makes this good science. Let's step up a level to Part 4, Biology and Neural Synchrony, looking at life and awareness.
Looking at Layer 2, the biology side of things, Brown's hypothesis states that this underlying field doesn't act like some heavy hand just forcing life to happen. Instead, it works through a mathematical concept called a cross-diffusion model. The best way to picture this is like a gentle current in a river. It quietly biases the persistence of biological patterns over time. It essentially gives a slight underlying thermodynamic advantage to biological order, helping complex life forms stick around rather than just fading away into total chaos.
Then we step up to Layer 3, which is all about the human mind and neural synchrony. For our minds, Brown hypothesizes that slow changes in this underlying field actually modulate the stability of our highly synchronized brain states. Basically, our integrated information, our literal awareness, is directly tied to the field. And just like the physics layer, this can absolutely be tested. Researchers can use safe, pre-registered stimuli and standard brain scanning equipment like your everyday EEGs and MEGs to observe these effects in real time.
Finally, Part 5, the real-world implications, or how this changes our entire view of reality.
If Brown's math holds up to laboratory testing, the implications across these three major domains are absolutely staggering. In physics, it implies gravity is not an isolated force. It can actually be minutely altered by thermodynamics and information. In biology, it suggests life isn't just a random lucky accident of chemistry, but an emergent phase gently guided by a fundamental universal field. And regarding the mind, it implies human consciousness and our brainwaves are directly tied to the very basic laws of thermodynamics. It literally means our thoughts, our biological evolution, and the gravity holding us to the Earth are all fundamentally speaking the exact same language.
Ultimately, Kevin L. Brown is offering us a mathematical blueprint for a truly unified universe. It's cleanly captured in this powerful summary right from his research paper. Gravitation, biological order, and neural awareness arise as scale-specific phases of a coupled three-layer field. It is such a bold, beautiful attempt to bring everything we know into one cohesive picture.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one big thought to ponder long after we're done here. If our brainwaves and the force of gravity share the exact same underlying field, how far does your awareness ripple across the universe? It's a pretty wild idea to consider, isn't it? Thank you guys so much for exploring this incredible framework with me today.